Hi, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. Today, I would like to discuss a not so popular Disney film, and that is Wish. Now, while I would say I enjoy Wish more than the average person, this is a deeply flawed film, and people have covered that extensively on the internet. What I would like to talk about today is Asha's I Want song, This Wish, and a specific aspect of it that I really like. This song, and the soundtrack as a whole, is flawed. With This Wish, I would say the main issue is some awkward lyrics undercutting what I think is a very pretty melody. Not to mention undercutting the vocals, as I'm actually a really big fan of Ariana DeBose's voice for Asha's character. She walks this line of being modern, but also having a classic, unique quality to her voice that is in line with so much of this film. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about how This Wish is a prayer. Now, while I won't get into the details of my own faith and belief system, I will state that I am coming at this from a Judeo Christian perspective. However, what I love about how this song presents the idea of a prayer is that it is universal and transcends the boundaries of religious lines. And my goal for this discussion today is to reflect that. I'm also not saying that this film as a whole is remotely rooted in a specific faith or any faith, as that is not true. Now, looking at the setup of this sequence visually and narratively, I don't think many will find it a leap to read it or listen to it as a prayer. Asha is troubled, worried not just for herself but for her people, and turns to the stars to express her desires and wish to solve these troubles. Visually, she is literally up in a tree, an emotionally significant place for her nonetheless, singing to the stars, the universe. Singing up to the sky is often shorthand for placing a song in a prayer or general religious context, particularly for monotheistic religions, with the idea of God being up in the sky. From a Judeo Christian perspective, one could even say that the wind is not just a pretty visual, but a higher power, or in Christian doctrine specifically, the Holy Spirit, being with Asha and hearing her prayer. Everything narratively and visually about this sequence is indicative of a prayer, and I think that is intentional as this film is focusing on the wishing star, which has been present in old Disney fairy tales and was already akin to a prayer. It's a natural progression of the older Disney films Wish is trying to pay homage to, coming from old fairy tales rooted in faith, most of them specifically Christian themselves. This song, it's a quiet, intimate moment of vulnerability and faith, no matter if you want to say Asha is singing to the universe or a deity. Isn't truth supposed to set you free? Then why do I feel so weighed down by it? Is the opening line of this song, and I think can be read on multiple levels. There's the deeper level specific to Christian theology with the concept of sin and feeling the weight of sin before praying to be freed from it. What I think is more relevant to this conversation on the broad level, however, is the universal idea of feeling the weight of your circumstances in the world and turning to prayer to express what's burdening your heart and ask for divine help and intervention. A distinctly human act I think we can all relate to, no matter what the specifics look like to you. The entire first verse feels like someone with the fire of a newfound faith. In Asha's case, stemmed from a huge realization that has changed her entire worldview. I particularly like the line, "This is where we've been, but it's not where we belong," because this is an idea in line with a variety of theologies. Judeo Christian coming to mind saying we are godly people in a fallen world. And then we get to the chorus. "So I look up at the stars to guide me," once again reflective of the idea of a prayer, "and throw caution to every warning sign." Now, this is one of those awkward lines lyrically, and what they're trying to say here is throw caution to the wind, which is faith by definition, as you are taking a risk and trusting someone or something bigger than you. It is actively going against our human instinct for control and saying, I put this desire, this need, you could even say, this wish, in other hands. And as Asha sings, "So I make this wish," she goes up into her head voice because she's singing up to the sky. So the next line, "If knowing what it could be is what drives me, then let me be the first to stand in line," is honestly just faith by definition. So much of the vast majority of belief systems is trusting in the could be, what you believe in's plan. Not as a robber of agency and forging a path, but being guided by faith. Asha is feeling that trust, excited for the possibilities, and is essentially saying, let me be a vessel towards making this future that could be. Let me stand first in line. And I love that she sings, "So I make this wish to have something more for us than this." Not me, us. And this reflects the communal nature of prayer across faiths, be it for loved ones, for our communities, or just peace for the world. I think it's beautiful and in line with most religious teachings across faiths that Asha, who has lost her dad and been through hardships, is selfless and not just praying for herself individually. Some might make fun of the vague nature of something more for us in this line, but I actually think it's really in line with how the song is functioning in this context. Not knowing the specifics, but believing there is a bright future, something great for us through the trials, is very, very faith based, and in a sense, why we pray. The entire point is that we don't know what it necessarily looks like, or what the way there looks like, and that's what makes it faith. The beginning of the second verse, "I never knew I needed room to grow," as well as "now I've got all of this freedom in my bones," is once again very indicative of newfound faith. And then Asha expresses something that is such a human feeling in raw honesty. "Because I've got reservations and hesitations on where I should even begin. And if I could just be pointed in any given direction on where to go or what to do, my legs are shaking, but my head's held high." What is prayer but our fear of doing things in our own strength, asking for guidance and for our paths to be lit before us, as well as pure, unfiltered honesty about the ways in which we feel in the dark? I'm hesitant. I'm scared. I'm not even sure which direction to take the next step in, so I'm turning to my belief system. And with that comes a newfound confidence. I'm sure there will be challenges that find me, but I can take them on one at a time. That is the power of leaning not only on your own strengths and capabilities, and absolute trust in something bigger than you. It might be God or another deity or deities. It might be the universe. Whatever it is you believe in, this is a human experience that transcends historical, cultural, and of course, religious barriers. So while coming from old fairy tales, some of this is more distinctly Christian, at least on some levels in which you could read it, and I'm sure my own Judeo Christian perspective seeped in a little bit to this discussion, as that's where the majority of my knowledge lies. I think it's incredibly powerful to view and listen to the sequence on that shared level as well. A prayer, in its answer, having the power to change the world for the better. And the song ends with a star, kind of like a divine being, coming down in response. At the end of the day, while I like to view this musical number as a prayer and moment of faith, and love how it functions in the narrative in that capacity, you don't have to see it that way. You can disagree, and that's fine. And I think that openness of interpretation is a smart choice. It's unalienating, but in a way that avoids it as coming across as playing it safe or as it just being nothing. Rather, it is distinctly so very many worldviews that you can project your own onto, because it is distinctly human. In a film that, while I enjoy my time while I watch it, I see is deeply flawed with frustratingly easy to fix choices bogging it down, this moment is a highlight for me. I love the idea of a prayer, in the case of this being a musical, in song form, being an inciting incident to a narrative. You could even say, I wish this concept had something more than this film. In fact, from the pitch of telling the story of the wishing star to this idea of the "I want" song being a prayer, what makes this movie so frustrating is that it doesn't live up to its potential. And that's not even getting into Starboy. It's weighed down by modern Disney tropes: a dorkable main heroine, lack of romance, not being able to write good villains anymore, unnecessary Easter eggs scattered about, that feel especially forced in a film also trying to honor old Disney fairy tales. The film doesn't know what to be, floundering between traditional and modern, in all the ways that are incompatible instead of successfully bringing them together. The Easter eggs are just plain tacky. And when it comes to the villain, at least they tried to make an actual evil villain again, but Magnifico's character and musical number are just truly awful. Back to the main topic, however, to me, the coding, if you will, of this wish as a prayer is actually incredibly plain to see, and I was surprised I couldn't find anyone discussing it. And then I realized, I think it's because this moment and concept isn't placed in a better context of a film that supports it. Discussion of something as poignant and personal as this doesn't feel like something the rest of this film is worthy of, or a height it could possibly achieve, and so it is overlooked. Supported properly by the sum of its film's parts, I really believe the sequence, I think especially with a few adjusted lyrics, could shine as a beautiful moment in animation. Unfortunately, as is, it falls flat on its face like a modern adorkable Disney heroine. Before I wrap this up, I would like to once again recognize and reiterate that I am well aware my perspective as a person of faith in general, but also specifically Judeo Christian faith, definitely impacted my analysis and how I viewed this song. Some may read it very differently, or see other things in the lyrics, based on their own belief system, or may not look at the song as a prayer at all. Because of that, I would love to hear what others think about this idea and get a variety of perspectives in the comments below. But that being said, if I do get comments, I hope there aren't any issues. And I am going to say, because I think it's important, with the nature of the topic at hand, I'm going to ask that any discussions that might happen be civil and respectful and bring us together in media analysis. Just like how the universal human nature of this sequence, or at least its potential, shows, we are more alike than we are different, and I would never want my channel to be anything but friendly, uniting, and encouraging of critical thinking. With that disclaimer said, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say on this topic, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.